Hello, hello. My name is Azren, and I am trying to learn 8 different languages. I wanted to make a short video and tell you about how I'm doing it and how the journey is going so far. So I'll begin with languages that I already speak really well, and I'll tell you how I learn these languages. So the first language that I speak is English, which is my native language. The second language I learned after that was French. Now, French I learned primarily through school. I did all of my education in French from kindergarten to grade 12. And then I also had the privilege of studying in France a number of times, once in high school, once in university. I've done some trips to France as well. In university, my major was French and Spanish. And so that gave me the opportunity to learn another language, which of course was Spanish. I did a little bit of Spanish in high school as well, and I also did get the opportunity to travel abroad in South America for about 3 months. The other thing that helped me tremendously for both French and Spanish was doing a lot of speaking with native speakers. In my university, we had so many. Again, I was lucky in this way, but we had a lot of native speakers for both French and Spanish, and I went out of my way to hang out with them and practice with them. For the 4 years of my university degree, I was probably speaking just as much French and Spanish every day as I was English. So ultimately, for French and Spanish, the big keys for me to reach the level that I have in each of those languages, which is very, very advanced, was taking lots of classes, traveling abroad a little bit, and doing lots and lots of practice with native speakers. Now, in the next language I learned after that was Mandarin. Mandarin is a level that I speak at an upper intermediate level, something like that. And I've been studying it on and off for about 10 or 11 years. My strategy was pretty much similar. I did lots of classes. I did a little bit of traveling abroad. I practiced a lot with native speakers as much as I could. For Mandarin, I think the native speaker practice was in person here where I live, but frankly, I did a lot of it online. I did a lot of it online as well, through language exchanges or even private tutors, just to practice speaking, right? And at the end of the day, very, very similar kind of process, right? It was about taking lots of classes. It was about traveling when I could, and getting that immersive experience, and then practicing with native speakers as often as I possibly could. I think for all languages, for Mandarin, for French, for Spanish, for all of those, a big piece of it was also doing a lot of listening comprehension. Listening to YouTube videos, watching things, music, YouTube, right? Like that also was a really big part of the equation. Now, after Mandarin, the next language I studied was Gujarati. Now, Gujarati is technically my heritage language. So I grew up with Gujarati in the household with my family, but there were a few problems. The first problem was that my family speaks a slightly non-standard variant of Gujarati. And so that was one obstacle for me. The second obstacle was that I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes in the Gujarati language. The third obstacle was I had some peculiar pronunciation traits that I'd picked up in my life. And the fourth, there was a bunch of obstacles. Let's just say that. There was lots of obstacles that we can stack on top of each other. And the overall result was the very first time I went to India, which was when I was 14, something like that, I didn't understand the Gujaratis around me. And whenever I spoke Gujarati to people around me, they also didn't understand what I was saying. So that was rough. Now, in 2018, I began to study this language actively as an adult. And the way that I did it was, yes, taking some classes. I did take quite a few, but Gujarati doesn't have a lot of teachers. So that's a bit trickier. So most of my Gujarati learning, I would say, was self-study. A lot of it was self-study. And there are no resources. So I couldn't use apps or books that. They don't exist for Gujarati. So I would just watch a bunch of videos and try to piece together how the language worked. I try and see all the patterns. I basically learned a lot of the grammar I learned from scratch. There are some resources that I use, but a lot of it I just had to figure out just by listening and talking and trying to find patterns. So at the end of the day for Gujarati, it was much more of almost like a brute force approach. It almost wasn't all that strategic. It was well, let's just go like listen as much as I can, talk as much as I can, and just try and absorb this language, notice the patterns, see it. It was actually a very, very, very difficult, process, mostly just because the resources don't exist. In fact, if you're trying to learn a language where there aren't a lot of resources, what I found is you have to get creative. You have to MacGyver. You have to find creative ways to learn the language that maybe aren't necessarily ideal. There's no beautiful textbook or beautiful course or nothing like that. You just have to get down and dirty and just get it done through brute force effort sometimes. That was my experience for Gujarati. So ultimately, those are the 5 that I speak well. So my English is native. My French and Spanish are very, very, very advanced. My Mandarin and Gujarati are both pretty fluent, but not anything even remotely close to my French and Spanish. And then my 6th language, which I'm learning right now, is Ukrainian. I've been learning Ukrainian for about a year. I have something like, it's really tough to say what my level is. It's like I can understand a lot of podcasts and shows and YouTube videos when I watch them. I do need the Ukrainian subtitles, but I'm able to do it, a lot of it anyway. The speaking front, I haven't talked to someone in a long time, but the last time I did, the last memorable speaking experience I have was when I hung out with a Ukrainian friend I have here in Calgary, and we hung out for like 90 minutes chit-chatting in Ukrainian for an hour and a half. So that was pretty cool. So I think I have like maybe like a low intermediate level. In some ways, probably high beginner, frankly, in certain ways, but overall, maybe like low intermediate-ish in that language. My goal for Ukrainian is to reach, I don't really have high ambitions for the language. I probably just want to become conversational and just feel really comfortable. The method I've used for Ukrainian is highly based on comprehensible input. Comprehensible input is a fancy way of saying lots of listening and lots of reading to content that is at your level. That's pretty much what that means in simple terms. I've also done a little bit of conversation practice and things like that too. But this time around, really, compared to other languages where I did take, in general, would take a lot of classes, this time around, I haven't really taken that many. In fact, usually the classes I take, it's just for the convenience and ease of finding someone to talk to. In fact, as a pro tip for you guys, if you struggle to find people to talk to, if you're like, who do I talk to? How do I practice speaking? Well, one way to do it, frankly, is to hire a private tutor. You can even hire a low-cost tutor who charges $10, $11, $12, $10 an hour or something like that. You can even do that, frankly. Just as like an easy, straightforward way to like have someone reliable to talk to. There's other ways to find speaking partners too, but that's one way if you have a little bit of a budget. And so that's the 6th language that I'm learning right now. Now, I mentioned that I want to learn 8 languages in total. And so the next languages on my list are going to be Arabic, Hindi. Arabic and Hindi I kind of sort of speak already because of the Gujarati. They're similar, but I don't speak it that well. Arabic I took like something like 17 years ago. I took a few lessons, but again, I don't speak this language really at all. And then probably there'll probably be an 8th language. I'm thinking like Russian, maybe like something, maybe like Swahili or something in Africa. Like I don't really know, but Russian probably is going to be in there. And yeah. For my languages, last thing I'll say, I do want to improve, at the very least, I want to improve my Mandarin and get it up to my French and Spanish level. My French and Spanish are really, really advanced. I'd like my Mandarin to be at that same very, very advanced level, which will take time. There's no shortcuts there. And then Gujarati as well, probably want to bump up the level a little bit. So that's where I'm at so far. Thanks for watching this. If you have any questions on learning languages, I'm more than happy to answer. It has been the central pillar of my life for like 18 plus years. And so I've been rather gifted in a sense. Gifted not in the sense of me being talented, but gifted in the sense of like, I've been lucky. I've been lucky that in my life, I've just had circumstances in many ways present themselves where I've just had so much experience personally and professionally with language acquisition. So if I can do anything to help, please let me know. I'm more than happy to be of service. Have a good day. See you next time. Bye-bye.